Welcome to Character in Action from the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. I'm Matthew J. Norcross here in the studio with Richard Shandon. Hey, Richard.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
I've been doing pretty good. So we're going to do something a little bit different this week. We're going to talk about past interviews I did in the beginning of the show. Now, the first clip I'm going to play for you is of my father, Paul Norcross. I interviewed him through Zoom earlier this year, and his definition of character was really interesting, and I'm going to play some of it for you.
Character is ultimately the act of selflessness that permeates the entirety of your thoughts, words, and deeds, from the smallest act to the largest. A daily effort to know what is right and act accordingly, which, at its core means considering how your words and actions impact others, over and above your own needs and desires, which frankly is not human nature, but it takes thought and effort.
Response?
Yeah, I think one of the main things you think about when it comes to character is, how you treat people, and him even using just this base. It seems like something that should be considered very basic, but it's just really not. It's not a natural thing for you to consider how you affect other people.
Yeah.
And having that level of empathy in your character.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Key word, empathy.
Yeah. And having that in your character is the difference. But I mean, honestly, the difference between good character and bad character.
Yeah. And it definitely goes back to that old saying from Goethe, which I always go to: treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you help them become what they're capable of becoming.
That's right.
Yeah. And no matter what whenever I think of treating people the way you want to be treated, I always think of that quote. And so the next quote that I want to play for you today is from Dale Folwell, who's the state treasurer. You've heard of Dale Folwell, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he is our state treasurer, and I had the pleasure of interviewing him also during the early days of the podcast, and he also had a very good definition of character, and I want to play it for you.
If you don't have integrity, eventually those last two won't matter. And integrity is what you do when no one's watching. That's what integrity is. And if you're poor in resource and you think you're going to, quote, pull someone else off their ladder to climb yours, they're going to squash you. They're going to fall on you. Generally speaking, anybody that you would ever try to pull off a ladder is going to be more connected or have more power than you do, and therefore you'll never survive that. So always climb your own ladder. And when you're doing that, understand that you're going to make mistakes. I've been racing motorcycles 46 years. Never won a national or a state cross-country motocross championship where I didn't slide out at least once in a turn or hit a tree or try to jump a creek. And the reason I'm telling that to your listeners, simply because you are going to make mistakes. If you're trying to ride fast enough to be more efficient and to do something better than anybody else in the whole world, when you make mistakes, you have a responsibility to close them, especially in this world. If you wait for the world to discover your mistake, you probably won't survive that.
Another key word, responsibility.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on that quote?
Yeah, I think the idea of integrity being part of character. I guess sometimes when I think about character, I automatically think about good character.
Yeah.
But there is a such thing as bad character.
Yes.
And it seems like bad character is selfish.
Yeah, being selfish, being disrespectful.
Yeah, like it doesn't consider the ramifications of what you do. When he talks about something like integrity, integrity to me means you are living out your conviction.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That is when someone's living out their conviction and it's good for humanity, we consider that good character.
And I gotta say this: I'm very optimistic that in the future, more people will practice good character rather than bad.
Oh yeah, I think sometimes we miss just how good some people really are, just because it's so easy to see the bad that's going on. And I think in some sense that's going to be a part of what is going to make good character good
Yes.
in the future is people with integrity holding themselves to the standard of trying to see the good. I think so. Whether it changes now, gets better, gets worse, I think people that choose to keep their integrity intact will be the leaders of where good character comes from.
Yeah, that's what a lot of institutions are missing these days, right? Integrity.
You're right. Right.
Yeah. So now I want the next quote I'm going to play for everyone today is from a guy named Steve Snyder. He's a longtime Taekwondo instructor, and he runs a martial arts studio called Tiger Rock Martial Arts in High Point, and he had a great quote about respect, and I want to play it for you.
This whole thing about respect it's lost in society, or the definition has been changed, and nobody really knows what it should be. If we would just go back to the simple thing of, that whole trait of treat others as you would like to be treated yourself first, then that respect would come in automatically.
And it goes back to that Goethe saying again.
It can't be escaped.
Yeah. And so what did you think of that? What did you think of that quote?
Sometimes I think just hearing people talk about respect, I wonder why it seems like such a hard thing to comprehend.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea of being able to get from within yourself.
Yeah.
I think maybe what we're probably going to hear in every quote and probably everything before and after the show,
Right.
is these moments in time in life that you prepare yourself to think past what you believe, what you think, what you, in some sense, maybe even value.
Yeah.
So in some sense where I may be valuing something just specifically about myself so much that I'm just completely unaware of someone else's perspective or idea or existence even.
Yeah. Now, full disclosure, he's a martial artist, right?
Yeah.
And martial arts is one of the traits that's very important in martial arts is respect.
Right.
And that's also a trait that you see in a lot of Asian countries, Japan,
Yes.
Korea. And I know this because I've been to Asia myself.
Right.
And if you go to Japan, for example, their society is built on respect.
Yeah. Honor. Yeah. I mean, that just seems like a very Eastern way. I really wish, we could understand that when you talk about honor.
Yeah.
Right. Like honor is very, very important in those cultures to the point where it speaks to the gospel even more, the gospel of Jesus Christ, because when he says, forsake your father, forsake your mother for his cause, that is a very strong rejection, which would be considered in all these cultures dishonorable.
Yeah.
And so when you really think about how deep that goes and how much respect is valued compared to how we live here, it's just way different.
Very different. I know that for a fact, especially since I've been to Asia many times. So, the fourth quote I'm going to play for everyone this week it's also about respect, but it's from former Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. He's also an architect, and when I had the honor of interviewing him, he said this, what I said was an awesome quote about respect, and I'm gonna play for everyone right now.
I've
always use this line. I used it with my staff as lieutenant governor, and I still use it today. And that line is, everybody has a story. And are you willing to spend the time to get to know somebody's story? It's hard work. It takes time and energy and sacrifice at times. But if you're willing to sit down with somebody and hear where they came from and what makes them tick and what's important to them, then you find out that we're all just human beings. We all really want the same thing. We want what's best for our family, our kids, our grandkids. We want to live in a city that's safe and secure. We want people to serve in those communities in political ways because we don't want to do it ourselves oftentimes. We're thankful for that. Once you sit down and know somebody's story, then you have a greater level of respect for them. But if you're willing to get angry and hide behind a computer, then I don't think you're ever going to see respect return.
Everyone has a story. What did you think of that?
I mean, you can't beat that. When kind of like what I was saying earlier about getting out of, in some sense, I say a lot, getting out of your own way. But once you get out of your head and stop worrying about just your perspective,
right?
And the story and looking for the story is actually how you do that. So he actually, in telling people to understand another person's story, he's giving you the how-to of respect.
Yes.
The how-to of, because in someone's story, you get to understand that person. In someone's story, you get to see perspective of where they're coming from.
Right.
One of the quotes I think I've heard before is, "Be curious, not judgmental."
Curiosity leads to new things, as Walt Disney would say. Is that correct? Isn't that correct?
Yes. Walt Disney is the man of storytelling.
Yeah. He was definitely a true visionary when it comes to storytelling. And I thought what Dan Forrest said in that quote, "Everyone has a story," couldn't be any more true today.
Right.
So the next quote is from a guy named John Stefani. He's been in the finance industry for a long time. And this quote is about the trait of caring, which is a very important trait in the 7 degrees. And I want to play this quote for you.
Caring is really kindness and concern. I think that's the best way for me to articulate how I define what caring is. So if I do have clients, because you mentioned it very specific to clients, and I do that for finance, in my financial career, and I've done it in my consulting career and so on. It kind of aligns a little bit with respect, where each individual that I am working with or working for should be afforded kindness and concern as it relates to what it is that they're trying to accomplish, as well as how it is that I would actually attempt to deliver what it is that they're attempting to accomplish.
Now, I found it very interesting for Mr. Stefani to align caring with respect. And now I want to know your thoughts. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because I think it's one thing to say, consider a person's story, right? That to me is understanding the person. But when it comes to caring using compassion and concern means that you don't just know about someone.
Right.
You want to know where they're going.
Yes.
Like how they're thinking, what's going on inside of them, their purpose. So whereas respect is considering and kind of not putting your perspective on a person's perspective.
Yeah.
Caring is, I'm going to invest myself. Caring is putting yourself alongside of that person in their journey in concerning them, like concerning yourself about them, caring about them.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Stefani, and what he said about caring, he laid it out beautifully. So the last quote I'm going to play for everyone today is about citizenship. This is from Christian Castelli. And while I was interviewing him, he was running for Congress. Unfortunately, he lost, but he is a perfect example of an American citizen since he served in the Army. And I just want everyone to listen to this. This is a great quote.
Yeah, I think being a good citizen means being a good representative of any organization in which you represent, be it your country, your state, your municipality, your church, whatever organization, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. It's always doing the right thing and representing your organization well so that you would be a good, productive member of society, a good, productive citizen, and member of that organization, befitting whatever the goals of that organization.
A good, productive member of society.
Yeah.
That was, we need more of those these days, don't we?
Yeah, I think just the idea of taking pride in where you're from, where you are, what your convictions are. I think that's just a very responsible thing to do.
Yes.
Because it's not just about you, which the more, like I said, the more we get into this, the more we seem to understand, like, the more you can think about others, the better your character becomes.
All the people I played excerpts from, they are great examples of people of character, in my opinion. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing a lot of these people. Some of them I already knew, and others I've gotten to know throughout the years. So it has been a real pleasure going on this journey, being on this podcast. So
yeah, that's really awesome. It's been such a pleasure to see all the different, strong people of character that's come through here.
Yeah, and hopefully there will be more to come.
Absolutely.
All right, Richard. Thanks for joining me on this journey.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
And that's a great way to end the show. Thank you all for listening, and we hope to see you again next week with a great guest. Thank you for your help, Richard.
My pleasure. This was awesome.
Well, that's all for now. Character in Action is a co-production of the Truth Network and the 7 Degrees of Change Foundation. Your host is me, Matthew J. Norcross. Our producers are Robbie Dillmore and Richard Channing, and our intro is done by Robbie Dillmore. If you like the show, be sure to listen to and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes are posted every Sunday. Thank you for listening. See you next week, and always remember, everyone can be a phoenix.